The whistle pierced the autumn air as Violet Oaks gripped her carpetbag so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Watching the dusty platform of Placerville, California materialized through the train window like something from a fever dream she could not wake from. It was September 1878, and everything she owned in this world fit into the single worn bag clutched against her chest. The train lurched to a stop, steam hissing into the dry California air, and Violet felt her stomach drop as if she had swallowed stones. Through the smudged glass, she could see him. William Fletcher stood on the platform, tall and broad-shouldered, his hat pulled low against the afternoon sun. He was the man she had agreed to marry through letters exchanged over 6 months, the man whose careful penmanship had promised her safety, and a new beginning far from the ash and ruin of her life in Philadelphia. Her hands trembled as she gathered her shawl, the thin fabric inadequate protection against both the elements and the terror coursing through her veins. The other passengers pushed past her, eager to disembark, their voices a blur of excitement and relief at reaching their destination. Violet could not share their enthusiasm. Each step toward the exit felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff, uncertain whether solid ground or empty air awaited her. The conductor offered his hand as she descended the metal steps, but her legs shook so violently she nearly stumbled on the last one. The platform seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Everything was so different here, so raw and unfinished compared to the city she had left behind. The buildings along Main Street were a mix of weathered wood and newer construction, the mountains rising in the distance like silent sentinels guarding secrets she could not yet comprehend. William stepped forward, and Violet's breath caught in her throat. His letters had not prepared her for the reality of him. He was older than she had imagined, perhaps 30 to her 22 years, with lines around his eyes that spoke of hard work and harder winters. But those eyes were kind, a warm brown that softened as he took her in, standing there trembling like a leaf in a storm. "Miss Oaks." His voice was deep, roughened by wind and sun, but gentle. Violet managed a nod, unable to trust her voice. The bag slipped slightly in her sweating palms. William removed his hat, revealing dark hair touched with premature gray at the temples. "You are safe now," he whispered, stepping closer but maintaining a respectful distance. The words were so quiet she almost missed them beneath the sounds of the departing train and the bustle of the platform, but they hit her with unexpected force. Something inside her chest cracked open, just a fraction. She had not felt safe in so long. Not since the fire that had taken her parents and younger brother 2 years ago. Not since her aunt had made it clear Violet was a burden she could barely tolerate. Not during the long journey west, surrounded by strangers and doubt. "I apologize," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am not usually so fragile. No apology needed." William's expression remained patient, understanding. "It is a long journey you have made. Would you like some water, something to eat?" "The hotel has a decent dining room, and I have taken the liberty of securing you a room there until you are ready to proceed with our arrangement. There is no rush, Miss Oaks. I meant what I wrote in my letters. You take all the time you need to be certain this is what you want." The kindness in his words nearly undid her completely. Violet blinked rapidly, refusing to cry on this dusty platform in front of this stranger who had offered her salvation through the mail. "Water would be appreciated, thank you." William offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Violet took it. His strength was immediately apparent, the solid muscle beneath the fabric of his shirt speaking of physical labor. But his movements were careful, as if he feared startling her further. They walked slowly down the platform, past the depot where a clerk was sorting mail, past a group of miners covered in dust discussing their latest claims. Placerville was smaller than Violet had expected, the main street lined with establishments that served the needs of the mining community and ranchers who worked the surrounding lands. The Golden Eagle Hotel stood 2 stories tall, its sign creaking in the breeze. William guided her inside, where the proprietor, a stout woman named Mrs. Carson, greeted them with a knowing smile. "This must be your intended," Mrs. Carson said warmly. "Welcome to Placerville, dear. Do not let the rough exterior fool you. We have a proper community here, with a church and a school and good people who look after one another." Violet managed a small smile. "Thank you." William spoke quietly with Mrs. Carson while Violet stood in the lobby, trying to steady her breathing. The interior was clean, if modest, with oil lamps mounted on the walls and a staircase leading to the rooms above. Through a doorway, she could see the dining room William had mentioned, where several patrons sat eating their supper. "I have your room ready," Mrs. Carson said, producing a key. "Second floor overlooks the street, nice and quiet. Mr. Fletcher has already settled the bill for the week, so you just rest and recover from your travels." "A week?" Violet looked at William in surprise. He shifted his weight, looking somewhat uncomfortable. "As I said, there is no rush. I thought you might want time to acclimate to be sure about your decision. My ranch is about an hour's ride from town. When you are ready, I will take you out to see it, introduce you to my men. If you decide this is not what you want, I will arrange passage for you wherever you wish to go." "You have my word." Violet stared at this man who was offering her an escape route before she had even committed to staying. It was so contrary to what she had feared, so different from the stories she had heard of mail-order marriages gone wrong. "That is very generous. It is only right." William's gaze was steady, honest. "This is a decision that will affect both our lives. It should be made with clear heads and willing hearts." Mrs. Carson showed Violet to her room, chattering about the town and its inhabitants. The room was simple but clean, with a bed covered in a patchwork quilt, a washstand with a pitcher and basin, and a window that did indeed overlook Main Street. Once alone, Violet sank onto the bed, her trembling finally subsiding to occasional shivers. She had done it. She had crossed the entire country to meet a stranger and possibly marry him. The enormity of it all threatened to overwhelm her, but beneath the fear, there was something else. A tiny spark of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, William Fletcher was exactly who he claimed to be in his letters. An honest man seeking companionship, willing to offer protection and partnership in return. A knock at the door startled her from her thoughts. When she opened it, William stood there with a tray bearing a pitcher of water, a glass, and a plate of bread and cheese. "I thought you might prefer to eat privately tonight," he said. "Tomorrow, if you are feeling up to it, I would like to show you around town, introduce you to some folks, but only if you wish." Violet took the tray, touched by his consideration. "Tomorrow sounds fine, and Mr. Fletcher." "Thank you for understanding," he nodded, settling his hat back on his head. "I will be staying at my friend's place in town tonight, the boarding house 2 streets over. If you need anything at all, Mrs. Carson knows how to find me. Otherwise, I will come by tomorrow morning around 9, if that suits you." 9 is perfect. After he left, Violet ate slowly, her appetite returning as the adrenaline of the day finally began to fade. She washed her face and hands in the basin, changed into her nightgown and slipped between the clean sheets. Through the window, she could hear the sounds of Placerville settling in for the night. Voices from the saloon down the street, the distant bark of a dog, the clip-clop of a horse passing by. She thought of William's words, "You are safe now." She wanted desperately to believe them. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of trains and fire and a tall rancher with kind eyes who promised impossible things. Morning arrived with sunlight streaming through the thin curtains. Violet rose and performed her ablutions, then dressed in her best day dress, a modest green cotton that brought out her eyes. She pinned her auburn hair up carefully, studying her reflection in the small mirror above the washstand. Her face was too pale, too thin from the stress of recent months, but her eyes held a determination that had carried her this far. At precisely 9 o'clock, a knock sounded at her door. William stood in the hallway, looking freshly shaved and somewhat nervous himself. "Good morning, Miss Oakes. I trust you slept well." "Well enough, thank you." It was not entirely true, but she appreciated the convention of politeness. "And please call me Violet. If we are considering marriage, such formality seems unnecessary." A smile touched his lips, transforming his serious face into something warmer. "Violet, then, and you should call me William or Will, as my friends do." They descended to the dining room, where Mrs. Carson served them breakfast. Fresh eggs, bacon, biscuits with butter and jam, and strong coffee that helped clear the remaining fog from Violet's mind. As they ate, William told her about Placerville. "It started as a mining camp during the gold rush," he explained. "They called it dry diggings at first, then Hangtown for a while due to some rough justice in the early days. The name changed to Placerville in '54, trying to attract a better class of settlers. It worked, mostly. We have got legitimate businesses now, families, a future beyond just tearing gold from the mountains." "And your ranch?" Violet asked, genuinely curious. "How did you come to own it?" William's expression grew thoughtful. "I came west in '70 after the war. Worked as a ranch hand for several years, saved every penny. When the owner, old Tom Winters, decided to retire and move to San Francisco to be near his daughter, he sold me the place for a fair price. I have been building it up ever since. Running cattle mostly, some horses. It is a good life, but a lonely one." There was honesty in his admission that Violet appreciated. Why a mail-order bride? Surely there are women here in Placerville who would have been interested. He looked down at his coffee. "There are a few single women, yes. But most are much younger, daughters of the local families, and I did not feel right courting girls barely out of school. The others, well, we just never suited. I wanted someone who understood what it meant to start fresh, to build something new from difficult circumstances." "Your letters spoke to that understanding." Violet remembered the letters she had written, pouring out more of her heart than she had intended. She had told him about the fire, about her losses, about her desperate need to escape her aunt's cold charity. He had responded with compassion and practical offers of a new life, never pressing, always respectful. After breakfast, William guided her through Placerville. They visited the general store, where the proprietor, Mr. Jensen, greeted William warmly and eyed Violet with frank curiosity. The church stood at the end of Main Street, a white building with a modest steeple. Reverend Matthews was tending the small garden beside it and came over to shake hands when William introduced Violet. "We would be honored to perform the ceremony whenever you folks are ready," the Reverend said kindly. "No pressure, of course. Marriage is a sacred commitment not to be entered into lightly." They walked past the school, currently empty for the weekend, and the telegraph office, the livery stable, and the assayer's office. Everywhere they went, people greeted William with respect and Violet with cautious welcome. She could feel them assessing her, wondering about this stranger who might become part of their community. "They seem protective of you," Violet observed as they walked toward the edge of town. William nodded. "I suppose they are. I have helped most of them at one time or another." lending hands during barn raisings, helping track down strayed cattle, that sort of thing. Folks here look after one another. It is how we survive. Do they know about our arrangement? Some do. It is hard to keep secrets in a small town, and I made no effort to hide the fact that I had placed an advertisement back east. But no one will judge you for it, Violet. Times are changing. Women outnumber men in some parts of the country. Men outnumber women in others. There is no shame in finding practical solutions to loneliness. They reached the outskirts of town, where the landscape opened up into rolling hills covered in dry grass and scattered oaks. The mountains rose in the distance, their peaks touched with the first hints of autumn color. "Would you like to see the ranch?" William asked. "I can have horses brought around, or we can take a wagon if you prefer." Violet considered. The thought of seeing where she might live, where she might build this new life, both terrified and excited her. "A wagon, please." "I am not much of a rider, I am afraid." "A wagon it is." William arranged for a wagon from the livery, and soon they were rolling out of Placerville along a well-worn road that wound through the countryside. The September air was warm but pleasant, the sun bright overhead. Violet found herself relaxing slightly, lulled by the rhythm of the horse's hooves and the gentle sway of the wagon. "Tell me about your family," William said as they drove. "If it is not too painful." Violet took a breath, surprised to find she wanted to talk about them. "My father was a clerk at a shipping company. My mother took in sewing. We were not wealthy, but we were happy. My brother Thomas was 14 when the fire started. A lamp overturned in the middle of the night. The building was old, dry as tinder. By the time we realized what was happening, the flames were everywhere." Her voice caught, but she continued. "I got out through a window. I screamed for them to follow, but the smoke was too thick, the heat too intense. I stood in the street and watched everything burn. The neighbors held me back when I tried to go in after them." William's hand found hers, his grip warm and steady. "I am sorry. No one should have to endure such loss. My aunt took me in afterward, my mother's sister, but she made it clear I was an obligation, not family. She had her own children to worry about, her own household. When I saw your advertisement, it felt like providence, a chance to leave that sadness behind, to be somewhere I was wanted." "You are wanted," William said quietly. "I hope you will come to believe that." They crested a hill, and the ranch spread out before them. It was more substantial than Violet had imagined. The main house was a sturdy 2-story structure built of logs and stone, with a wide porch wrapping around the front. Behind it stood a large barn, a bunkhouse, several corrals holding horses and cattle, and various outbuildings. A creek ran along the eastern edge of the property, lined with cottonwoods that provided shade. "This is it," William said, and she could hear the pride in his voice. "The Fletcher Ranch. 3,000 acres of grazing land, water rights to the creek, and enough timber to keep us in firewood for generations." "It is beautiful," Violet breathed, and she meant it. There was something solid and real about it, a place carved from wilderness through determination and hard work. William drove the wagon down to the house, where 2 men emerged from the barn. He introduced them as Jack and Samuel, ranch hands who lived in the bunkhouse. Both tipped their hats respectfully to Violet, their expressions carefully neutral. "Jack has been with me since the beginning," William explained. "Samuel joined up last spring. Good men, both of them. They know their business and do not cause trouble." The inside of the house was neat but sparse, clearly the domain of men unaccustomed to domestic concerns. The main room held a large stone fireplace, a rough-hewn table with chairs, and a few pieces of well-worn furniture. A kitchen area occupied one corner, functional but lacking in refinements. Stairs led to the second floor. "There are 3 bedrooms upstairs," William said, watching Violet's face carefully. "The largest would be for us if you agree to the marriage. The others could be for children, eventually, or guests. I know it is not fancy, but it is sound and warm in winter." Violet walked slowly through the space, imaging what it could become. Curtains at the windows, rugs on the floors, perhaps some pictures on the walls. A home, not just a house. "It has good bones," she said finally. "With some attention, it could be very comfortable." William's relief was visible. "I was hoping you would say that. I am a fair hand at ranching, but I will admit domestic matters are not my strength. The house could use a woman's touch." They spent the afternoon at the ranch, with William showing Violet around the property. He introduced her to the horses, pointing out his favorites. He walked her along the creek, where the water ran clear and cold over smooth stones. He showed her the garden plot, currently overgrown with weeds but potentially productive with care. As the sun began to sink toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, they sat on the porch steps together. Violet felt some of the tension that had gripped her since leaving Philadelphia begin to ease. Here, in this place so far from everything she had known, she could imagine a future. Not the future she had once dreamed of as a girl, perhaps, but something real and possible. "I have a question," Violet said quietly, "and I hope you will answer honestly." "Always," William replied. "Why did you tell me I was safe? On the platform yesterday when I was shaking like a fool. What made you say that?" William was quiet for a long moment, his gaze on the darkening horizon. "I saw a woman who had been brave enough to cross a continent to meet a stranger, who had survived loss and heartbreak, standing there trying not to fall apart. I saw someone who needed to hear that the worst was over, that she had found a place where no one would hurt her or make her feel unwanted. I cannot promise you everything will be easy, Violet. Ranch life is hard. Winters are cold, summers are hot, and there is always work to be done. But I can promise you safety, respect, partnership, a home of your own." Violet felt tears prick her eyes, but these were different from the tears she had shed in grief and fear. These were tears of relief, of hope cautiously reborn. "I think I would like to marry you, William Fletcher, if the offer still stands." His smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "The offer stands. Today, tomorrow, whenever you are ready. Would a week be too soon? I know it seems rushed, but I do not see the point in waiting if we are both decided. A week is perfect." William stood and offered her his hand, helping her to her feet. "We will speak to Reverend Matthews tomorrow, arrange everything properly. In the meantime, you should stay at the hotel, continue to get your bearings in town. Mrs. Carson will look after you." They drove back to Placerville as the stars emerged, bright and clear in the vast western sky. Violet found herself looking forward to the coming days rather than dreading them. A shift so profound she barely recognized herself. The week passed in a flurry of activity. Mrs. Carson and several of the other town women took Violet under their collective wing, helping her prepare for the wedding. They produced a dress, simple but lovely, made of cream-colored wool. Mrs. Jensen from the general store contributed lace for the collar and cuffs. The Reverend's wife, Martha Matthews, taught Violet how to bake bread in a wood-fired oven, essential knowledge for ranch life. William visited every day, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. They took walks together, shared meals, and talked about everything and nothing. Violet learned that he loved to read, keeping a small shelf of books at the ranch. He learned that she had a talent for drawing, her sketchbook filled with careful renderings of buildings and faces from her old life. They discussed how to run the household, what supplies would be needed, how to manage the accounts. The more time Violet spent with William, the more her initial terror transformed into something warmer. He was unfailingly patient, never pressing for more than she was willing to give. When he took her hand during their walks, it felt natural. When he smiled at something she said, her heart lifted in response. The wedding was set for Saturday afternoon, giving the townspeople time to finish their weekly business and attend. Violet woke that morning with butterflies in her stomach, but they were excited butterflies, not fearful ones. Mrs. Carson helped her dress, pinning up her hair with extra care and tucking a few wildflowers into the arrangement. "You make a lovely bride," Mrs. Carson said warmly. "And William Fletcher is a good man. You will be happy together, I think." The church was fuller than Violet expected. Apparently, a wedding was significant entertainment in Placerville, and William was well liked enough that people wanted to witness his happiness. Violet walked down the aisle alone, having no one to give her away, but she held her head high. This was her choice, her future, and she walked toward it willingly. William stood at the front of the church, dressed in a new suit that must have been ordered specially for the occasion. His eyes never left Violet's face as she approached, and the expression in them made her breath catch. He looked at her like she was something precious, something to be cherished. Reverend Matthews performed the ceremony with warmth and sincerity. Violet's voice trembled only slightly as she spoke her vows, promising to love and honor this man who had offered her sanctuary. William's voice was steady and sure, his promises ringing through the small church with absolute conviction. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, William kissed her gently, respectfully, a promise of more to come when they were alone. The congregation erupted in applause and cheers, and Violet found herself smiling so widely her cheeks hurt. The townspeople had organized a reception at the hotel, complete with food and music. A fiddler played lively tunes while people danced and celebrated. Violet was passed from partner to partner, learning the steps of dances she had never encountered in Philadelphia's more formal ballrooms. William danced with her several times, holding her close during the slower songs, his hand warm at her waist. As the sun began to set, William leaned close and whispered, "Ready to go home, Mrs. Fletcher, Mrs. Fletcher." The name sent a thrill through her. "Yes," she said, "I am ready." They said their goodbyes and thank yous, then climbed into the wagon William had decorated with ribbons and bells, courtesy of the ranch hands. The drive to the ranch felt different this time, weighted with anticipation and the reality of what was about to happen. Violet and William were married now, husband and wife, and the night ahead would seal that bond. But when they arrived at the ranch house, William surprised her. "I have prepared the main bedroom for you," he said quietly. "Fresh linens, everything clean and ready. But I want you to know, Violet, there is no expectation tonight. I know this has all happened quickly. If you need time to adjust, to feel comfortable, I can sleep in one of the other rooms. We have the rest of our lives. There is no rush." Violet looked at this man who had shown her nothing but kindness and respect, who had given her safety when she was drowning in fear. Something warm and certain bloomed in her chest. "I appreciate that, William, but I do not want you to sleep in another room. You are my husband now. This is our wedding night." His eyes darkened with desire, but he remained controlled. "Are you certain?" "I am certain." William carried her over the threshold, a tradition that made Violet laugh despite her nervousness. He set her down gently in the main room, then lit several lamps, bathing the space in warm light. Someone, probably Jack and Samuel, had cleaned the house thoroughly and left wildflowers in jars on the table and mantel. They climbed the stairs together, hands linked. The main bedroom was indeed prepared beautifully, with clean white sheets on the large bed, more flowers on the dresser, and the windows open to let in the cool night air. William closed the door softly behind them. "I want you to know," he said, his voice low and serious, "that I care about you, Violet. This is not just a practical arrangement for me anymore. These past weeks, getting to know you, I have come to admire your strength, your courage. I want to make you happy." Violet stepped closer, reaching up to touch his face. The gesture felt bold but right. "You already have made me happy. You gave me hope when I had none. You made me feel wanted after so long feeling like a burden. That means everything to me." He turned his head to press a kiss to her palm, then gathered her into his arms. Their second kiss was deeper than the chaste one in the church, full of building passion and need. Violet melted into it, her hands fisting in his jacket as he pulled her closer. What followed was tender and passionate by turns, William patient and careful with her innocence, Violet eager and willing despite her inexperience. He murmured endearments against her skin, praising her beauty, her courage, her sweetness. She discovered the solid strength of his body, the scars that marked his back and arms from years of hard work and harder times. They came together in the lamplight, creating a bond that went beyond words or vows, two lonely souls finding solace and joy in each other. Afterward they lay tangled in the sheets, Violet's head on William's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "None," Violet said firmly. "This is exactly where I want to be. Good. Because I intend to keep you here, make you so happy you never want to leave. I think you are well on your way to succeeding at that." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, the windows open to the sounds of the ranch at night. Cattle lowing in the distance, the wind rustling through the cottonwoods, the creek babbling over stones. It was a symphony so different from the city sounds Violet had grown up with, but already it was beginning to feel like home. The following weeks brought a rhythm to their days. Violet woke early with William, making breakfast for him and the hands. She threw herself into transforming the house, sewing curtains from fabric purchased at the general store, scrubbing floors and walls, organizing the kitchen to her liking. She revived the garden, planting late-season vegetables and herbs that would survive the coming winter. William worked long days on the ranch, but he always made time for her. They ate supper together each evening, talking about their days. He taught her to ride, patient through her initial clumsiness, until she gained confidence. She read to him in the evenings from his small collection of books, her voice filling the house with stories of adventure and romance. Jack and Samuel gradually warmed to her presence, especially after she began baking pies and cookies, bringing them out to the bunkhouse as treats. They started addressing her as Mrs. Fletcher with genuine respect, rather than formality, accepting her as part of the ranch family. One evening in early November, as winter began to make its presence known, Violet and William sat before the fireplace after supper. She was sketching while he reviewed the ranch accounts, a peaceful domestic scene that still sometimes surprised her with its normalcy. "I have been thinking," William said, setting aside his ledger, "about expanding the herd next spring. We have the grazing land and the market for beef is strong. But it would mean more work, possibly hiring another hand or two." Violet looked up from her drawing. "What do you think we should do?" "I am asking what you think. This is your ranch too now, Violet. These decisions affect both of us." The casual inclusion of her opinion in ranch business warmed her. "Then I think if we can afford it, expansion makes sense. Build security for the future." "The future," William repeated, his gaze thoughtful. "Speaking of which, how would you feel about children? I know we have not discussed it directly, but I find myself thinking about it more and more. A family to fill this house, to inherit what we are building." Violet set down her sketchbook, her heart beating faster. "I would like that very much. I always wanted a family before the fire, Thought that dream died with my parents and Thomas, but now with you it feels possible again." William crossed to where she sat, kneeling beside her chair. "I love you, Violet Fletcher. I need you to know that. This started as a practical arrangement, but somewhere along the way it became so much more. You are my partner, my companion, the light that fills this house. I love you." Tears spilled down Violet's cheeks as she cupped his face in her hands. "I love you too. I think I started falling for you that first day on the platform when you told me I was safe. You made me believe in possibilities again." He kissed her then, deep and claiming, then swept her up and carried her to their bedroom, where they reaffirmed their love and commitment with passion and tenderness. Winter arrived in earnest, bringing cold winds and occasional snow. The ranch work shifted to winter tasks, maintaining equipment, caring for the animals through harsh weather, cutting firewood. Violet learned to cook hearty meals to sustain men working in the cold, mastered the art of keeping the house warm despite drafts, and spent long evenings sewing and mending while William read aloud, or they simply enjoyed each other's company. By February, Violet's monthly courses failed to arrive. She waited another week to be certain before mentioning it to William, watching for signs her body might be harboring the new life they had hoped for. When a second week passed with continued symptoms, nausea in the mornings and unusual fatigue, she could no longer deny what was happening. She told him one evening after supper, simply and directly, "William, I believe I am with child." He froze, his coffee cup halfway to his lips, then set it down carefully. "Truly, I am fairly certain. All the signs are there." Joy transformed his face, making him look years younger. He crossed to her in 3 long strides, pulling her into his arms and spinning her around. "A baby. We are going to have a baby." Violet laughed, giddy with his happiness and her own. "We should probably confirm it with a doctor before getting too excited, but yes, I believe so. We will go to town tomorrow. Make sure everything is progressing as it should." "Oh, Violet." He set her down carefully as if she might break, then knelt and pressed his ear to her still flat stomach. "Hello in there, little one. This is your father. I cannot wait to meet you." The doctor in Placerville confirmed what Violet already knew. She was approximately 2 months along, due in late August. He prescribed rest and good nutrition, warned against excessive physical labor, and sent them on their way with congratulations and instructions to return monthly for checkups. The news spread through Placerville with the speed of wildfire. The town women rallied around Violet, offering advice and hand-me-down baby clothes. Mrs. Carson knitted tiny sweaters and blankets. Martha Matthews promised to help when the time came, having assisted with many births in the area. As Violet's belly grew with the spring, so did her love for William and their life together. He was attentive to the point of being comically overprotective, trying to prevent her from doing any work at all until she firmly informed him that she was pregnant, not ill, and perfectly capable of normal activities. They prepared one of the smaller bedrooms as a nursery, William building a cradle from oak wood he had been saving for a special purpose. Violet sewed tiny gowns and blankets, her heart swelling each time she imagined the small person who would wear them. In late May, an unexpected visitor arrived at the ranch. A man in his 50s, well-dressed and riding a fine horse, introduced himself as Robert Oakes, Violet's uncle by marriage, her aunt's husband. Violet received him with wariness, uncertain why he had traveled so far. William stood beside her, a silent, supportive presence. "I came to apologize," Robert said without preamble, sitting in their main room with hat in hand, "for how my wife treated you after the fire, for not standing up for you when you needed family most. She was overwhelmed by her own troubles, not that that excuses her coldness, but I should have done better by you." Violet studied him carefully. Why now? Why come all this way after all these months? Because your aunt passed away 3 weeks ago. Pneumonia took her quickly. On her deathbed, she expressed regret for how she treated you, made me promise to find you and make amends if I could. I know it is too little, too late, but I wanted you to know that you were thought of at the end, and I wanted to see for myself that you were well. The news of her aunt's death stirred complicated emotions in Violet. She had not loved the woman, but neither had she wished her ill. I am sorry for your loss, she said finally, and I accept your apology. I have made a good life here. I am happy. Robert's gaze took in the comfortable house, William's protective stance, Violet's rounded belly. I can see that. You have done well for yourself. Your mother would be proud. Before he left the next morning, Robert handed Violet a small package. From the fire, he explained. A few items that survived. I thought you might want them. After he rode away, Violet opened the package with trembling hands. Inside was her mother's wedding ring, slightly scorched but intact. A daguerreotype of her family, the image faded but still visible. And a small wooden horse Thomas had carved, one of his first attempts at whittling. She held these treasures to her chest and wept, William's arms around her, mourning what was lost while grateful for what remained. The visit had brought closure she had not realized she needed, a final severing of the past that allowed her to fully embrace her present. Summer arrived with its heat and long days. Violet moved more slowly now, her belly large and cumbersome, but she remained active, tending her garden and managing the household. William hired 2 additional men for the summer work, and the ranch thrived under his capable management. On a sweltering afternoon in late August, Violet's labor began. William sent one of the hands racing to town for Martha Matthews and the doctor while he helped Violet to their bedroom, his face pale but determined to be strong for her. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next morning. William stayed with her throughout, holding her hand, wiping her brow, offering what comfort he could. When their son finally entered the world with a robust cry just after dawn, William had tears streaming down his face. "A boy," Martha announced, placing the squalling infant in Violet's arms. "Healthy and strong, just like his parents." Violet looked down at the red, wrinkled face of her child, overcome with a love so fierce it stole her breath. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "We have been waiting for you." William touched the baby's tiny fist with one calloused finger, his expression full of wonder. "He is perfect." "You are perfect. Thank you, Violet. Thank you for this gift." They named him Thomas William Fletcher, honoring the brother Violet had lost and the father who would guide him. Little Thomas proved to be an easy baby, sleeping well and feeding eagerly. He had William's dark hair and Violet's green eyes, a perfect blending of both parents. The ranch hands became honorary uncles, taking turns holding the baby and making ridiculous faces to earn his smiles. Jack carved him wooden toys. Samuel taught him, once he was old enough, to identify different bird calls. Mrs. Carson knitted him an entire wardrobe. As Thomas grew from infant to toddler, Violet and William settled into the rhythms of parenthood. Their love for each other deepened with each shared midnight feeding, each milestone celebrated, each challenge overcome together. The practical arrangement that had brought them together had blossomed into a true partnership, a marriage built on mutual respect, shared goals, and genuine affection that had ripened into enduring love. When Thomas was 2, Violet became pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, her body knowing what to expect. Their daughter, Elizabeth Rose, arrived in the spring of 1882, a placid baby who rarely cried and seemed fascinated by everything around her. The years rolled on, marked by the changing seasons and the growth of their family. Thomas grew into a sturdy boy who loved following his father around the ranch, learning ranching from the moment he could walk. Elizabeth was gentler, preferring to help her mother in the garden or sketch in the notebook Violet gave her, showing early artistic talent. In 1884, their third child arrived, another son they named James. He was a whirlwind of energy from the start, keeping Violet constantly on her toes. William often joked that James alone was more work than all the cattle on the ranch combined. The Fletcher Ranch continued to prosper under William's management and Violet's careful household economy. They expanded the herd, built a new barn, and purchased additional acreage from a neighbor looking to retire. The ranch became known throughout the region for quality beef and William's fair dealing. Violet never forgot her first day in Placerville, stepping off that train with her world narrowed to the single carpetbag in her shaking hands. Sometimes, watching her children play in the yard while William worked nearby, she marveled at the life that had grown from those seeds of terror and hope. One evening in the summer of 1888, a decade after their wedding, Violet and William sat on the porch as they often did after the children were in bed. The ranch spread before them, peaceful in the twilight. Thomas, now 9, slept upstairs dreaming of horses. Elizabeth, 6, clutched the rag doll Violet had made her. James, 4, sprawled across his bed like a starfish. "You ever regret it?" William asked quietly. "Answering my advertisement, coming west, taking a chance on a stranger." Violet leaned into his side, his arm coming around her automatically. "Not for a single moment. You gave me everything I lost and more besides. A home, a family, a purpose. Love I never expected to find. I am the one who gained from our bargain," William said. "I was half alive before you came, just going through the motions. You brought light and warmth and life to this place. I look at our children and I still cannot quite believe they are real, that you chose to build this with me." "We built it together," Violet corrected. "That is what makes it beautiful." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The future stretched before them, full of possibility and promise. There would be challenges ahead, certainly. Ranching was never easy. Children grew and brought new concerns. Life had a way of testing even the strongest bonds. But they would face whatever came together, as they had from the beginning. The trembling woman who stepped off the train had found her strength in the arms of a rancher who promised her safety. And in finding safety, she had discovered love, partnership, and a home that embraced her completely. As the years continued to unfold, the Fletcher family became a cornerstone of the Placerville community. Thomas proved to have his father's gift for ranching, showing an intuitive understanding of the land and animals that promised he would eventually take over the operation. Elizabeth's artistic talents flourished, her drawings decorating every wall of the house and catching the attention of the schoolteacher, who encouraged her to pursue formal training someday. James remained a bundle of chaotic energy, but channeled into productive directions, his enthusiasm proving infectious. In 1890, Violet discovered she was pregnant once more at age 34. This surprise pregnancy worried William given her age, but Violet sailed through it with the ease of experience. Their fourth child, a daughter they named Sarah Ann, arrived healthy and squalling in the early spring of 1891. Sarah proved to be a perfect blend of all her siblings, with Thomas's determination, Elizabeth's creativity, and James's joy. She became the darling of the household, adored by her older siblings who competed for the privilege of helping care for her. The ranch continued to grow and thrive. William's reputation for fair dealing and quality stock brought buyers from as far as Sacramento and San Francisco. He and Violet made the decision to invest in breeding horses as well as cattle, a venture that proved lucrative as the demand for reliable working horses remained steady. Jack eventually married a widow from town, a kind woman named Helen who had lost her first husband to a mining accident. They built a small house on Fletcher land, and Jack continued working the ranch while Helen helped Violet with the increased household demands. Samuel married as well, bringing his bride Katie to live in an expanded bunkhouse. The ranch became almost a small village unto itself, with multiple families connected by work and friendship. Violet found herself the matriarch of this extended family, offering advice to the younger wives, tending the sick, helping with their children. It was a role she had never imagined for herself, but embraced wholeheartedly. In 1895, when Thomas turned 16, William began seriously teaching him the business side of ranching, not just the practical work. They spent evenings reviewing accounts, discussing market strategies, planning for the future. Thomas absorbed it all eagerly, asking intelligent questions and offering innovative ideas that William seriously considered. Elizabeth, at 13, had become a beautiful young woman with her mother's auburn hair and a talent for capturing the world around her in sketches and paintings. The Reverend's wife had taught her watercolors, and Elizabeth's paintings of the ranch and surrounding landscape were genuinely impressive. James, 11, had finally begun to settle slightly, his energy finding outlets in helping his father and brother with the more physical aspects of ranch work. He could ride as well as any of the hands and had a gift for training horses that showed real promise. Sarah, at 4, ruled the household with cheerful tyranny, her smile capable of convincing anyone to give her whatever she wanted. William was particularly susceptible, unable to deny his youngest anything. One evening that fall, William came in from the barn with news. "I have been approached about selling the ranch," he told Violet as they prepared for bed. "A land company from San Francisco, offering well above market value. They want to develop the area, bring in more settlers." Violet paused in brushing her hair. "What do you want to do? I want to know what you think. This is your home too." She set down the brush and turned to face him fully. "This is our home, where we built our family, where our children are growing. No amount of money could make me want to leave it, but if you think we should consider it, I will listen." William shook his head. "I have no desire to sell. This ranch is our legacy, what we will leave to our children. I just wanted to make sure you felt the same way." "I do, absolutely." He pulled her into his arms, kissing the top of her head. "Then we tell them no, the Fletcher ranch is not for sale." The rejection of the offer proved wise. Over the following years, the ranch's value continued to increase as Placerville grew and land became more scarce. Other ranchers sold out to development companies, but the Fletchers held firm, maintaining their way of life even as the world around them changed. In 1898, Thomas, now 19, announced his intention to marry. His chosen bride was Anna Harrison, daughter of a neighboring rancher. She was a practical, hard-working young woman who loved ranch life as much as Thomas did. The wedding was a grand affair, bringing together families from all over the region. William deeded a portion of the ranch land to Thomas and Anna as a wedding gift, helping them build their own house within sight of the main house. It gave the young couple independence while keeping the family close, a solution that pleased everyone. Elizabeth, at 16, attracted suitors despite her youth, but she showed little interest in any of them. "I want to study art properly," she told her parents. "There is a school in San Francisco that accepts women. I have been corresponding with them." Violet and William discussed it at length. The idea of their daughter moving to San Francisco troubled them, but they had always encouraged their children to pursue their talents and dreams. "If this is truly what you want," William said finally, "we will find a way to make it happen. But you finish your schooling here first, and we investigate this school thoroughly to ensure it is reputable and safe." Elizabeth threw her arms around her father's neck. "Thank you, Papa. I promise I will make you proud. You already do, sweetheart, every single day." The new century arrived with celebration and reflection. On New Year's Day 1900, the extended Fletcher family gathered at the main house for a feast. Thomas and Anna were there with their infant son, William Thomas, making William and Violet grandparents for the first time. Elizabeth, still at home but preparing for her eventual move to San Francisco, helped serve the meal. James, now 16 and as tall as his father, carved the roast. Sarah, 9 and growing like a weed, entertained everyone with a piano piece she had learned. Jack and Helen were there with their 3 children, Samuel and Katie with their 2. The bunkhouse hands, currently numbering 5, joined the celebration. The house rang with laughter and conversation, children racing through the rooms, the women in the kitchen comparing recipes and child-rearing strategies, the men discussing cattle prices and weather predictions. Violet stood at the threshold between the dining room and kitchen, watching it all with a full heart. William came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Happy New Century, Mrs. Fletcher," he murmured. "Happy New Century, Mr. Fletcher." Thinking about anything in particular? Everything. How far we have come. That terrified woman who stepped off the train 22 years ago barely exists anymore. You helped me become someone I never imagined I could be. You did that yourself. I just provided the safe space for you to grow. She turned in his arms to face him, reaching up to touch the silver that now threaded through his hair. He was 52 now, she 44, no longer young but seasoned and strong. The lines on his face had deepened, earned through years of work and weather, but his eyes still held the same kindness that had drawn her from the start. "I love you," she said simply. "Then, now, always. And I love you. Best decision I ever made, placing that advertisement." "Second best," she corrected with a smile. The best decision was being the man worthy of the answer it received. They kissed, ignoring the good-natured catcalls from their children and guests, lost for a moment in each other and the memories of over 2 decades of marriage. The years continued their march. Elizabeth did eventually attend the art school in San Francisco, though not until she was 18 and more prepared for city life. She thrived there, her talent blooming under proper instruction. She exhibited her work in galleries, garnering positive reviews and selling enough pieces to support herself, much to her parents' pride. James took over much of the horse training operation, developing a reputation for his ability to work with difficult animals. His patience and intuitive understanding made him sought after, with people bringing horses from throughout the region for him to train. Sarah, the baby of the family, grew into a spirited young woman with her father's business sense and her mother's artistic eye. She had no desire to leave the ranch, instead focusing on learning every aspect of its operation alongside her father and brother. Thomas and Anna had 3 children by 1905, expanding the Fletcher family further. The ranch land was parceled carefully between the generations, ensuring everyone had a stake while maintaining the integrity of the whole operation. In 1908, William celebrated his 60th birthday surrounded by children, grandchildren, friends, and neighbors. The party stretched across the yard, with tables laden with food and fiddle music playing long into the evening. He stood with Violet, surveying the crowd of people connected to them by blood or friendship, and marveled at the richness of the life they had built. "When I placed that advertisement," he said, speaking quietly enough that only Violet could hear, "I hoped for companionship, someone to share the work and the silence. I never imagined this, all of this." Violet squeezed his hand. "Neither did I. I was just running, trying to escape the pain and the grief. I thought safety meant not hurting anymore, but you showed me it means so much more. It means having a place to belong, people who love you, a purpose beyond mere survival." "We showed each other," William corrected. "This was not my doing alone, Violet. We built this together, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day." As the party continued around them, they slipped away to their porch, their refuge for 3 decades now. The ranch spread before them in the gathering twilight, solid and real and enduring. Cattle grazed in the far pastures, horses moved in the corrals, lights glowed in the windows of the houses scattered across their land. "You remember what I said to you that first day?" William asked. "You are safe now," Violet replied immediately. "I will never forget it. Those 4 words changed my life. They changed mine too, because in making you safe, I found my own safety. My own home, not just a house but a real home filled with love and laughter. You gave me that gift, Violet Fletcher." She leaned her head on his shoulder, fitting against him as perfectly as she had 30 years ago. "We gave it to each other." They sat together as the stars emerged, as they had done countless times before and would do countless times again. The trembling had long since stopped. The fear had transformed into courage. The desperate hope had blossomed into enduring love. The story that had begun with a mail-order bride stepping off a train in terror had become an epic of love, family, and perseverance. The rancher's whispered promise of safety had been kept every single day for 3 decades, in 1,000 large and small ways. But more than that, it had been exceeded beyond measure, transformed from mere safety into joy, partnership, and a love that would endure not just through their lifetimes, but in the legacy they left behind. Their children carried it forward, their grandchildren would carry it further still. And the Fletcher Ranch would stand as testament to what could be built when 2 people chose trust over fear, hope over despair, and love over loneliness. The future stretched before them still, for William and Violet had many good years left together. But whatever came, they would face it as they had faced everything, side by side, hand in hand, hearts intertwined. The Wild West that had once seemed so frightening to the woman from Philadelphia had become her truest home, and the stranger who promised her safety had become the love of her life. It was a story of transformation, of second chances, of finding light in unexpected places. And it was only possible because a rancher had the wisdom to offer gentleness to someone trembling with fear, and a woman had the courage to accept the hand extended to her. Their love story was written in the land they worked, the home they built, the children they raised, and the life they created together. Every sunset watched from their porch, every crisis weathered side by side, every joy celebrated hand in hand added another line to the epic of their love. As they aged together, growing old in the place that had made them whole, they never forgot those first moments. The terror and the comfort, the stranger and the promise, the trembling and the whispered reassurance that proved more true than either of them could have imagined. You are safe now. 4 simple words that had contained within them the seeds of everything beautiful that followed. A lifetime of love, laughter, challenge, and triumph. A family that would carry forward the values they had built together. A legacy that would endure far beyond their years. And at the heart of it all, the simple truth that love, real and enduring love could grow from the most unlikely of beginnings. That practical arrangements could blossom into profound connection. That two wounded souls seeking refuge could find healing in each other's arms. As William and Violet Fletcher moved through their 60s and into their 70s, still together on the ranch they had built into an empire, they remained each other's greatest treasure. The trembling had been replaced with strength, the fear with certainty, the desperate hope with fulfilled promise. They were safe. They were home. They were loved, and that made all the difference.